We're going to learn Parshas Vayaetzei in with Chumash with Hachaim HaKadosh, and the pasuk that we're going to learn is not right at the beginning of the parsha, but it is. Let me just see. Chapter 29, verse 22. You have to go to the other side. Chapter 29, verse 22. And what we're learning here is the story of Lavan tricking Yaakov. Lavan tricks Yaakov to marry Leah instead of Rachel. And the Hachaim says that the word Vayehi always means something sad. And here it says, Vayehi ba'erev, it was in the evening, and he took Leah, his daughter, and he had relations with her. Vayaetzei oisa elav, he brought her, it's talking about Lavan. Lavan took Leah, his daughter. Vayaetzei oisa elav, he brought his daughter. Lavan took Leah, his daughter, to him, to Yaakov. Vayaetzei elah, and he had relations with her. So Vayaetzei elah means that they consummated the marriage. And what is the Vayehi? Vayehi always means something very sad, Tsar Gadol, and which we've seen before. So the Hachaim says, each time it says Vayehi, we got to find the meaning for it. So what was so sad about this? Of course, what was the great pain, the Tsar Gadol? Yeah, of course, he got tricked and so on. But the Hachaim says, you know what the big pain for a tzaddik was? The big pain for this tzaddik was the fact that he was deceived, not so much that he got the wrong wife, but that the energy of holiness, the intense holiness that should have taken place when he lived with Leah, it was like dispersed. It was lost. All this holiness. And he tells us a very big secret over here. And that is that what happened? Yaakov now had relations with Leah, and he thought it's Rachel. And Leah got pregnant, and she had a child, Reuben. And what happened with Reuben? Was he the firstborn? Well, in the physical world, it seems like he was the firstborn. Who became kings? Yehuda. Who became Kohanim and Leviim? Levi. Who got a double portion? Yosef. Yosef's two sons. So in what sense was Reuven given the firstborn? Not really in anything. Reuven did not get the firstborn rights. What was the cause of this? The cause of this is the fact that Yaakov had relations with Leah, and during the relations, he thought that it was Rachel. So he's having relations with someone and thinking about another woman. He's thinking about Rachel, and he's having relations with Leah because he didn't know that he was tricked until the morning. Because of that, and this is broad in Shulchan Aruch, really, that a person should not have relations and be thinking about another person, another woman. And so this is what happened to Yaakov. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't like he should have directed his thoughts in a more pure way because he thought that was who he married. He thought that's the person who he's having relations with. But it turned out that it wasn't. And so the Hachaim here is giving us this great insight into the outcome, into the consequences of this relationship. And what happened was it was supposed to cause such a great element of holiness into the child, and it didn't end up happening because Yaakov's mind was on another woman. Yaakov's mind was about Rachel, and really he was having relations with Leah. And so this is why it says Vayehi. This is the cause of great pain, great tsar. By deceiving the tzaddik, it caused this intense holiness to be lost, to be thrown away. It was it was just wasted. And this is the cause that Reuven didn't get the Malchus, which basically means that Reuven would have been such a solid individual spiritually that he never would have sinned in any of those ways that caused him to lose these great blessings, these great gifts. But he sinned. Why? What caused him to sin? Because he had in him an element that wasn't total purity. That there was another, when his father was having relations with his mother, they were he was thinking about another woman. He was thinking about Rachel because he thought that's who he married. And so that's the sad part of this story, that Reuven ends up losing out. Now, of course, it's Reuven's fault, but had this been done properly, had everything worked out properly, it would have ended up that Reuven would have been stronger and it would have been easier for him to handle the challenges. And now we have the next Hachaim. Our next Hachaim says that the verse says, Lavan went in the evening and he took Leah, his daughter, and he brought Leah to Yaakov. Why does it say he took Leah? So the Hachaim says, you know why? It could be that he needed to force Leah. Leah didn't want to deceive Yaakov. And that's why it tells us this. In other words, what we're seeing are little tidbits of secrets here of what took part in this story. And here tells us what it's saying is, or at least it could be this is the meaning, that Yaakov was a holy person, was a Yid, a regular human being. And Leah didn't want to deceive him. And Leah said, I'm not going. Don't put me over here and marry me to Yaakov. He's expecting Rachel. Don't use me and let me decide. I don't want to deceive Yaakov. And therefore it says that Lavan went and he took her against her will. So that's one understanding. Now, it does say that Yaakov had relations. Now, it seems a little surprising. It seems a little surprising that to use this term, Vayovoy Eleho. Now, the Hachaim doesn't spell out what his question is, but I'm wondering if possibly possibly the Hachaim's question is, in other words, what is he explaining? What needs explanation here? So it could be that what's bothering him is, why does the Torah have to say Vayaetzei? Maybe it's not necessary. He brought her to him, and he was with her. Vayaetzei, he had relations with her. That could be the question, or it could be that Hachaim is simply surprised. How is it that Yaakov had relations with Leah and he didn't know? He didn't know who she was. He didn't know that she was Leah. Seems surprising. Wouldn't he have realized? He came home. So the Hachaim says it seemed that the reason why he didn't recognize that this is Leah is because Yaakov was extremely careful that he should not fall into any stumbling block of having any discharge of impurity before he fulfills this mitzvah. In fact, when Yaakov has relations with his wife, with Leah, Reuven is conceived, and when Reuven is born, when Reuven is blessed, I should say, when Yaakov blesses the tribes, what does he say about Reuven? He says, Reuven, you are the rachis oini, you are the first of my strength. And our rabbis say what that means is that Reuven was the first emission that Yaakov had. In other words, Yaakov never saw a wet dream and never masturbated, of course, in his life before he was, I think, 84, until he got married. And he got married at 84. And he was 77 when he arrived. He got married at 84. And then 84 and 13. He was there another 7 years and then 6 years. So 84 and 7 is 91. Yosef was born at 91. And he leaves there at 97 when he's 97. Goes to Eretz Yisrael. So it says that Yaakov, this was the first of his strength, which means that he never saw any discharge of impurity, any keri in his life before he had this, before Reuven, before he impregnated his wife with Reuven. So the point that the Hachaim is making here is that immediately when Yaakov came home, he immediately did not want to look at Rachel and stare at her beauty because he was nervous that he might end up having a mission before he actually has relations with her. So therefore, he immediately, so in other words, Vayaetzei eleha, when the pasuk says in chapter 29, verse 23, Chaf Tes, Chaf Gimel, it says Vayaetzei eleha, it means that he came home and he immediately said, okay, we're going to have relations right away. And in order that he shouldn't have any impurity beforehand and lose control, so to speak. And so therefore, he didn't recognize her. And so, and in order to have relations, according to halacha, you're not allowed to have any lights. So they had to put out the lights immediately. They immediately had relations. And then after relations, he couldn't see her because the lights are out. And in those days, you didn't have like electric to just flip on the switch. So he just went to sleep basically, or whatever, even if they talked. But he did not see her because there was no light. So that is the explanation of the Hachaim, how the practical side of this story could happen. How is it possible that he didn't realize that he didn't realize that it was Leah? The answer is that he had relations right away when they came to the house, And the reason he had relations right away, he didn't want to have any thoughts of her beauty beforehand that would cause him possibly to do a sin that he's never done in his whole life. And in fact, he says about Ruvain that Ruvain is Rashis Oini, the first of my vigor, my strength, first of his seed, so to speak. He never had let out seed before that. So therefore, he didn't want to look at her beauty, and maybe it would cause him to spill seed or to lose seed. So that's the interpretation of Pasuk Chav Gimel, where it says that he had relations with her. So I think what the Hachaim is saying is that why does the Pasuk say Vayaetzei Leha? Because it's telling us that he had relations. The first thing he did, they got to the where they were living, and he had relations right away. This is the reason. Now, Pasuk Chav Daled, it says that he gave Zilpah to Leah as a shifra, as a maidservant. And it's interesting that it doesn't just say to her. It says Leah, to Leah, not to her. Isn't it talking about Leah? And it also doesn't say l'shifcha. It says shifcha. It should say l'leah bitay l'shifcha, to be a maidservant. It just says as a maidservant, but not to be a maidservant, which I guess would fit. Maybe that's the more common way of wording it. So because of these two questions, again, why doesn't just use a pronoun? Why does it have to say her name? So he says that Zilpah and Bilhah were really inheritances for Rachel and Leah from their mother. Their mother had passed away already, and these were part of the property that was meant to be inherited by Rachel and Leah, and so it says the Leah Bita Shivcha. It's, in other words, that this Shivcha was her inheritance, and it's for his daughter, to hint that because this is a inheritance, so it's basically being given to the daughter based on the ksuba of the mother, but not that she acquired it from any other source. And it says Vayitain Lavan, that what is it mentioning? It says Lavan gave it to Leah, his daughter, because it's saying that this gift is not a gift, and not truly a gift, because it really was hers. But Lavan considered it a gift, and that's why it says, it's hinted to in the fact that it says Bitoy, his daughter. So Lavan gave Zilpah his maidservant. He was giving her his maidservant as a gift, but in reality, in truth, this was really hers in the first place. She was already belonged to her because Leah was his daughter from his wife, and was therefore deserved this, and by the laws of inheritance. So Lavan was part of his trick always was, claiming and deceiving people and so on. And he was, I'm going to give you, this great gift. Really, it's hers in the first place. So it says, Shifcha Soy, his Shifcha to Leah, his daughter. He gave to her Zilpah Shifcha Soy, his Shifcha, as if it was his, to Leah, his daughter, as a Shifcha, but really emphasizing the fact that this is for Leah. It really belonged to Leah, and he was seemingly deceived, in some sense, deceiving, implying as if this is my gift. Okay, so
Rabbi,
now, yeah,
I have a question.
Yeah.
At the end of Pasuk 23, where it says Vayavo Eleha, here it says he consorted with her, he came to her. Why doesn't it say he knew her or something like that?
Right. So I sort of I alluded to that question. I said, why does it even say such a word? Vayaetzei? That doesn't seem appropriate to say that. Yeah, he brought her into his house. He you know they lived together. Vayaetzei. But yeah, you could say he should have said Vayeda. So right. So my explanation, the question that I asked was based on the way the Hachaim answers it, explains it. Maybe this was what was bothering him. So you could say the same thing, that he was maybe bothered with the way you worded that question, that maybe it should have said Vayeda, so, or and why didn't it? And the answer is because it's emphasizing that the way this whole situation turned out was all based on the fact that he wanted to have relations with her first, immediately, right when they arrived. And that's what it's emphasizing, that's why it ended up happening, that he was able to, the trick actually worked, that he didn't realize till the morning. So it's explaining how it came about, such a situation where he didn't realize till the morning.
Yeah, because I'm wondering with other holy couples in the Torah, how many of them talk about their first relation?
Right. Right. It is surprising. Now this isn't the first time really where it says this term. It says it about Yaakov before also, where he tells Lavan, where is my wife, via Vaya Eleha, that I should cohabit with her. It is surprising there. Rashi explained that he was saying, I'm 84 years old. When am I going to have my 12 children?
My biological clock is ticking.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why he spoke like that. And Rashi asks, he says, even a low life doesn't speak like that. I don't know about today, but a low life in those days maybe, wouldn't say such a thing. So so that was that was Rashi's interpretation. We could take a look and see if the Hachaim's interpretation was over there, if he says anything there. But let's just take a look. Hava, it's actually not far off from us. It's a two or three verses before. Yeah, the Hachaim does ask the same question. He says it's not really right that the tzaddik shalaylam, he says, tzaddik of the world should say such a term. So the Hachaim's answer is based on a halacha that he had no other way to acquire her except through having relations. He says, the Rambam writes that if you say that I am that you are betrothed to me in exchange for this work that I am doing for you, it doesn't work, because the entire wage is a debt, and you can't, if someone performs kedushin with a debt, it doesn't work. That's the halacha. So basically, Yaakov had no other way to acquire her. So he says, deliver my wife, because I did not acquire her with the work I performed for you. So I need to have relations with her in order to marry her. That's what it means via Vayaetzei. So that, in other words, based on a halacha, which we found the Hachaim seems to like to put like a practical halacha, or a halacha brought in Shulchan Aruch, and he sort of like fits it into the pasuk over here. So that's why it sort of like answers Rashi's question. Rashi gives his answer that I need to have a family, but the Hachaim says, well, this is the method that I'm. In other words, the person acquires a wife with three options: Kislev, Shtar, and Bia. So the money, the star, and the relation. So it seems like what he's saying is he didn't have money, he didn't have anything to write it on, and if he could work for him, that also doesn't work. So it's basically the only option is having relations. And then the Hachaim says another approach, and the other approach is that he was able to acquire her before somehow. Um, if the person forgives the loan, there is a way to do it. So maybe according to this interpretation, he's married to her already. He acquired her, and he's saying, "Where's my wife? Give her to me. She's already my wife." Because this sale is a legal sale, and I already acquired her. And even though the money is not present, and this that I want you to deliver to me is not to finalize the acquisition with having relations because she's mine, but rather I want to live with her as is normal in the world. And the reason he uses the word biavaya eleha, that I should live with her, is that you shouldn't think that I am not married to her because I did acquire her already. I already was able to acquire her based on a certain halacha that it's possible. If you forgive a loan in some way, it would be possible, and I'm entitled to live with her as husband and wife. And so he's using the term that emphasizes that my marriage has been consummated already legally, and at least in a sense of the monetary, law of marriage, that I've been able to acquire her and be a vayaetzei, almost like, and I'm allowed to have relations. In other words, it's full. My marriage is complete. So those are his two interpretations in that, when it says it over there. But here it says vayaetzei, and the emphasis is that to show how this all came about, that he had relations with her without seeing her, without realizing who it is. Now, so then it says Vayehi ba'boker, and it was in the morning, and behold, it was Leah. So here again it says Vayehi. Before it says Vayehi ba'erev, it was in the evening he took Leah. Now it says again, verse 25, Vayehi ba'boker, and it was in the morning. Again, this is a Vayehi is a term that's sad. It's a tsar gadol, very painful. So what's the Vayehi ba'boker? So it's a lashon tsar. It's a term that's used for expressing pain, and so the term is the point is that he was pained by the fact that Rachel was withheld from him. And what the seemingly the Hachaim is saying is that Rachel was his soulmate, and if Rachel is withheld from him, this was very painful, because this is who his soulmate is. Now, the next Hachaim is Vihine hi Leah. Behold, it was Leah. Now, the word is spelled hu Leah. Vihine hu Leah. And why does it? He was Leah. It should be, and she was Leah, right? What does it mean? Vihine hu Leah. Now we read it he Leah, but it's spelled hu. Hey vav aleph. If you look at that pasuk in pasuk 25 chaf hey, it says vihine hu Leah. Now, of course, we pronounce it he, but it's spelled hu. Vihine hu Leah. So what does it say? Why does it say who with a vav and not he with an aleph? with a yud, excuse me. So it's hinting to the fact that the people were chanting. This is a famous medrash, probably heard it before, that it says they were trying to, the community knew that Lavan is tricking Jacob. Lavan's tricking Yaakov, and he's going to give him the older daughter, Leah. And so the community decided, let's hint to Yaakov. Now, Yaakov didn't catch on to the hint, but they tried to hint, and they hinted to him that it's Leah. So they sang some type of chant that's Halaya, 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 or something like that. It's Leah, it's Leah. Yaakov didn't pick up, but that's what the Medrash says, that the community tried to give a little hint that Yaakov should realize what's going on. Now, in the morning, he realized what happened, what they were saying. And so the pasuk says, "V'hine hu Leah," and behold that chanting, not that it was Leah the night before. It means the chanting was Leah. The statement, "V'hine hu Leah," that what they chanted was that the chanting was that it's Leah, and so that's V'hine. That's the meaning of V'hine. Very sad. It was revealed in the morning that he felt he was in pain that he didn't pick up on this the night before. Now, Hachaim goes through a whole thing about when Yaakov confronts Lavan, he says two things. He says, number one, what did you do to me? Or why did you do this to me? I worked for Rachel. Number two, why did you cheat me? Why did you do this to me, and why did you cheat me? What are the two separate things? Seemingly, it's one thing. So why did you cheat me? Why did you do this to me? So there must be two. The Hachaim says there has to be two things. If it's the pasuk implies two things. So he says the first one is that, number one, you switched them. But then you tricked me about switching them. No, you could have just said to me, I'm not giving you Rachel, I'm giving you Leah. You could have told me straight out. I could do nothing. My hands are tied. You're in charge. And you could have just, done what you wanted to. But then you also tricked me into making this mistake. He says, what's the difference? I mean, tricked him. It would seem like once he's not giving, Rachel to him, he's giving Leah. Okay, you tricked me. You didn't trick me. Why is Yaakov complaining? So the answer is what we mentioned earlier, that because you tricked me, when I had relations with Leah, I had in mind Rachel. And because of that, it created a blemish in my child. My relations was not pure. I was thinking about another woman when I had relations. So in other words, Yaakov would not have been so upset if you told me straight out that you're giving me Leah, because at least he would have, okay, marrying Leah, that's it. I can't do anything else. Okay, at least I know it's Leah. I'm marrying Leah. Okay, I thought I was marrying Rachel. Marrying Leah. Okay, marrying Leah. And at least he would have had relations with Leah and had in mind Leah. But instead, he had in mind Rachel, and that caused a terrible thing that his mind was on another woman when he was having relations, and that's what caused ultimately that Reuven ended up sinning, because he didn't have the purity that should have come from the relations that Yaakov had with his wife. Now, the way the Hachaim concludes this little paragraph is, he says, this bothered Yaakov the most. because the tzaddikim, the righteous, are most sensitive about things that affect the spiritual reality. So in other words, to marry the wrong person, no problem. But you affected the spiritual things. That was the problem. So that's one way of interpreting this. Then the Hachaim goes on another way of interpreting it. He says that I married Leah in a deceitful way. In other words, I was tricked into this. And so for the rest of my life, my marriage to her was based on a trick. It was based on being deceived. He says, it is demeaning for a wife to be married by means of deception. And this will push away the cherishing of the marriage. And this especially was a, in other words, it's like if he would have known it's Leah beforehand, he wouldn't have felt that he married her, out of a mistake. He knew, okay, he didn't know days before, weeks before. He knew before he did the wedding, he knew that it's Leah and that's it. He has no choice. It's Leah, fine. But here, it's like the marriage is all based on a deceit. And so he feels like the relationship with her is never going to be a good relationship. And then the Hachaim has another interpretation. And that is that Yaakov didn't want to make the implication, he didn't want to imply, Yaakov didn't want to imply, Yaakov didn't want to imply that there's a difference between Leah and Rachel. And say, oh, Leah, Rachel is so much better. He didn't want to give off that impression. And because he was nervous that, oh, Rachel is much better, then you should work for me 10 years for Rachel, not another 7 years. So therefore, he tried to make it, he says, like, why did you deceive me? You could have just told me and it would be fine. As I would have married Leah. So in other words, he's trying to say, like, why do you have to deceive me? You could have just told me. That's his second point. No, number one is, why did you do this? And number two, why do you have to do it why do you have to deceive me? You could have said I would have married her. Yeah, she's the same. They're both the same. Don't charge me more for he was like Yaakov was thinking that he's going to get tricked more now to have to work even longer than 7 years to be able to marry Rachel. Okay, now comes the next Hachaim, and this is that Lavan. What is Lavan's answer? So Lavan, the trickster, is coming up with an answer over here. He says, well, that we don't do this in this place. You don't give the younger one before the older one. What was his claim? You made a deal, 7 years, and I get Rachel. What are you telling me? Oh, all of a sudden you're telling me about a minhag that you have. We made a deal. We have a deal about a monetary law. Come on. What does there some minhag have to do with anything? You're telling me you have some minhag to marry the older first? We've got it. We made a deal. We shook on it. So the Hachaim says that Lavan claimed, I'm not able to. The community here is preventing me from letting you marry Rachel because they said you're not allowed to do this. So therefore, they're claiming that he's claiming that it's not me. I would give you Rachel. It's the people protested. We have a whole protest going on, and it's getting violent. They're not letting me. They didn't let me, so and that's why it says Lo yeyasa kain bim kaimenu, in our place. It is not done. This is such a thing is not done in our place. He uses this plural because it's talking about the community not letting him. So that was his claim. That's one way of explaining it. Another way is that, and this actually is an interesting claim. Lavan agreed to marry. Lavan agreed that he's going to let Rachel marry, that Yaakov could marry Rachel. He agreed that 7 years early. And that was based on the assumption that Leah was going to get married in the meantime. Give her 7 years, by that time, Leah might have gotten married. So he says that it wasn't a contradiction to the custom. I expected her to get married. I gave her enough time. She should have gotten married, but it just turned out that she didn't get married. So therefore, you could wait. You could wait until she gets married, and then you could marry Rachel. But now you're telling me you want to marry someone already. I can't give you Rachel to marry. So if you want to get married already, I'll give you, I'll give you Leah. You demanded a wife. I didn't tell you to get married now. I was just waiting for Leah to get married. So we gave 7 years. That's how much the time you need to work. Now she's not. Leah never got married. Okay, so you could wait. You want to get married? Okay, so now I have to give you Leah. This is part of the rules over here. But it's not like I tricked you. Yes, David.
Yeah, I'm looking in the Baal Turim. So
Yeah.
on verse 25, where it says, it was in the morning, and behold, this is Leah. We talked about that with he. So the word vihine, he says on vihine, he refers to Vayikra, Leviticus 13:5. And over there it says it's talking about it says the Kohen shall look at the Kohen shall look at the affliction on the seventh day, and vihine, behold, the affliction retained its color. The affliction did not spread to the skin, etc., etc. So he says there, vihine, its expression applies to something which was not known previously, as here when the afflicted person had been quarantined until now. Similarly, when Yaakov discovered Leah instead of Rachel, the Torah states, vihine, he Leah. Behold, she is Leah.
You get it?
Yeah.
I didn't understand the flow. What's the main point? What's the main thing that he's comparing it to Tsaras?
He's comparing it to something which was not known until previously. It was not known previously. So the same
So here
way,
also it was not known previously.
right? And the use of the word vihine in both places is significant.
Something new. Vihine means like something new came about, like you didn't know it before. Was that what he's emphasizing?
Right. And in those two places in the Torah, they're using the word vihine to indicate something which was not known previously.
Right. Okay.
Rabbi?
Yes,
Rabbi?
yes.
I feel that actually this was a wrong on the part of Laban with respect to Leah, because Yaakov would have maybe happily accepted her based upon the custom and the midah, and you want a wife, okay, take her. But Leah, it's true, it impacts relationship. She did not get the whole kavsut of feeling like she's really the wanted wife. I mean, she's she's always gonna feel like she played second fiddle. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's,
Right.
it wasn't fair to her what Laban did.
In other words, what you're saying is Lavan was not thinking long term. He was thinking very short term.
Yes, and not thinking at all on behalf of Leah's benefit, really.
Right. In
That
other words,
it
what was the
would
whole
be
goal
harmful
was
to the relationship.
right. Almost like he enjoyed being deceitful, not to get, not to, not. It's not what it gains. Almost like just because it's enjoyable to have to be to deceive people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, but no, like almost like he's not getting much personal gain from it. Right. Right.
No, he didn't get any gain, but it would be harmful to the feelings of Leah.
That's what I'm saying. He's like hurting himself.
Yes, yes.
But as long as you're deceitful, right? That's what he's thinking. Huh? As long as I can deceive someone. Anyway, that's Shalom. Okay, yes, David.
I heard a very interesting Devar Torah from Rabbi Lairfield, Al Basham, a few years ago. He said in that morning afterwards, Yaakov said to Leah, and he said this is in the Medrash, Yaakov said to Leah, what did you do over here? How come you conceive me? How did you deceive me? She said, I learned it from you. He says, what do you mean you learned it from me? She says, who's the person who stood in front of his father and said, it's me, and deceived his father into thinking. So Yaakov answered her and said, I did it because my mother told me to do it. So she said, I did it because my father told me to do it. And after that, she didn't. The question never came up again between the two of them.
Right. Well, the problem is that the difference between the parents, Yaakov had a mother who was righteous. You know, Leah had a father who's evil. So yeah, it would seem like Yaakov had a good answer to say. He just didn't want to waste his words.
But the two of them listened to their parents.
Right. But you're not always supposed to listen to a parent if they tell you to go against the Torah. So it's a little the Hachaim and the Ramban both bring down there's a discussion if was Yaakov really, did he have hatred to Leah? You know, she says, Ki snua anoichi, I am hated. So there's somewhat of a discussion. It's even brought in the Medrash as well about was Leah really hated by Yaakov? And of course, the question is, if she really was hated, then how did Yaakov have the right to have relations with her? According to halacha, you're not allowed to have relations if you're not on good terms with your wife. In other words, if a person is feeling hatred to his wife, he can't have relations. So, you know, if she was really hated, how do you reconcile that? But the Ramban and the Hachaim seem to understand that maybe Yaakov did have hatred to her, and the reason being that because Yaakov was allowed to have hatred to her because she deceived him. She deceived him, so she did an Aveira. And that Aveira, according to at least one way of looking at it, is if someone does an Aveira, you're allowed to hate them for their Aveira, you know, for the Aveira that they did. And so the Ramban in the Hachaim, and this is a further Ramban where the Ramban says, Vayar Hashem Tisnua Leah, that Leah didn't know that she was really hated, but Hashem knew. And the understanding was that, you know, it's a really interesting topic, but because, you know, it's surprising that Yaakov would have had hatred to her, as I mentioned. Yeah. Surprising that Yaakov would have done that. But anyway, there is the pasuk in pasuk 31, the Lamed Aleph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So over there, the Hachaim says that Hashem alone knew Hashem levada yusha yada he snua. He knew that she was hated, but Leah did not. Shaloi hergisha b'sinas. She didn't feel Yaakov's hatred for her, or dislike for her. So rather, she thought that she's just not loved, but she didn't know that she was really hated. But the Hachaim, the way he's translating it is Hashem saw. Wait for the phone. Hashem saw that that she's hated, and therefore he made her pregnant. He made her conceive right away, and you have to wait for it charging. So go get your truck. No. Okay. So the Hachaim continues, and he says over there that our rabbis say, what does it mean she was hated, disliked? Our rabbis say that it really means that when she was young, people said that she's meant to be the wife of the hated one. Snua means she's meant for the soine, for the one who hates, or the hated one, which was Esav. And because she's the older sister and Esav is the older brother, the older cousin, so there was the fact that that in other words, so there's another interpretation given by the Chachamim, by the Medrash, that the Medrash says that another meaning. In other words, the Hachaim and also the Ramban also mentioned such a thing, that Yaakov did hate Leah for not saying clearly and deceiving Yaakov and not telling him the truth. I'm Leah. She didn't say that. So he was angry at her, and he disliked her for that. According to halacha, somehow he was allowed to have such hatred because she sinned. And but there is a medrash that says that the reason why she's called Snua is not because he hated her, but because Leah is meant for the one who's hated, meaning Esav is hated by Hashem because of his sins, and as it says, "Ve'es Esav sonesi." There's a pasuk in Malachi that says, "I love Yaakov, Esav sonesi, but I hated Esav," and that's referring to Hashem. And so when it says Snua Leah is hated, it means that she's meant to be married to the one who's hated. Now, according to this, if she was childless, people would say, the reason you're childless is because you're not meant for Yaakov. You're really meant, your real Bashert is Esav. So therefore, Hashem opened her womb. So again, the verse says, I should have read the verse first. The verse says, Vayar Hashem, it's 31. Hashem saw that Leah is hated. So the way we're translating it is Hashem saw that Leah is, the people said that she's meant to be married to Esav, who's hated. And Vayiftach es Rachma, so Hashem made her be able to conceive. He opened her womb. And in order that it wouldn't be assumed that she is not the right shidduch for Yaakov, and she's not called the Bas Zugai. She's not called the Bas Zugai for Yaakov because she doesn't have kids. There must be a reason for it, and people might say that and whatever. So Hashem opened her womb, but Rachel Akara, but Rachel was Akara. Why does it say Rachel was barren? No, we're talking about Leah. So why does it say that Rachel? So the answer is that Hashem wanted that Leah shouldn't be so hated or disliked. So not only did he open up her womb, but also made Rachel not have kids. And this way, Yaakov would have a good reason to like Leah. But it seems like this second point that he's mentioning here is going back on his first interpretation. It says Rachel Akara Ula Yoser Sinasa, because again, it's referring to Yaakov's hatred. So it seems like he's going back on the first interpretation. So again, there's two interpretations. In what sense was Leah hated? Was it Yaakov that hated her? And according to that interpretation, the way the Hachaim explains it is Leah didn't feel that she was hated. She just felt that she's not loved, but she didn't know that she was hated. But therefore, because Yaakov hated her, so Hashem made it that she should have kids, and Leah and Rachel wouldn't have kids. And this way, maybe some of the love would get shifted to her, and or remove some of the hatred, because this one has kids, and this one doesn't have kids, But and then the other interpretation was Hashem saw that Leah is supposed to be married to the hated one, to Esav. That people were saying that. So people would continue saying that, and therefore Hashem made her that she should have kids. So Hashem opened her womb, and people would realize that she's really the proper Zivug. And I guess what the way you would translate the next part based on that is that the fact that Leah has kids and Rachel doesn't maybe is an implication that Leah's the real one who's right. Leah's even more bashert maybe than Leah. Just the way, again, it's about how people are causing this negative feeling to Leah. Okay, David, did you want to say something? Yeah.
The Baal Turim says on these four words, Vayar Hashem ki Senua. First of all, they translate Senua as unloved instead of hated. But he says,
who's that? Whose translation is that?
The translation from the Chumash, from the text of the Chumash. This is from Art Scroll, yeah. And it's so the text of the Chumash he translated is
Senua does literally hate it. Okay. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if they're watering it down a little. I mean, the word Senua means hated, but okay, yeah.
So the Baal Turim says the Yah Hashem ki Senua, that Hashem saw that she was unloved or hated. He says the final letters of these four words spell the divine name Ekya, Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey.
Yeah,
it says, and it says, this is when at the burning bush, Hashem said to Moshe, and Moshe said, "Who? What's his name? I want to say what your name is." So Hashem said to Moshe, "Ekya, Asher Ekya, I shall be what I will be." And then Hashem said, "Say to the children of Israel, Ekya has sent me to you." Right. So he says the Sefer Tevis of these four words is the name Ekya. And then he says, Yaakov suspected that just as Leah had taken the initiative in her relationship with him, so too she may have taken the initiative with regards to other men. Therefore, Hashem associated his name with her as evidence of her righteousness. And we find in other places when Hashem wanted to attest to conjugal fidelity, he did so by associating his name with the name of the person under suspicion. See Rashi to Bamidbar 26:5.
So what he's claiming is that Yaakov suspected that Leah might have had relations with other people.
Yeah.
That just sounds so strange because, didn't he, wasn't there blood of virginity when he married her? So it seems like.
It says here that he suspected it because the same way that she had taken the initiative in this relationship with him, so too she might have taken the initiative with regards to other people. So therefore, in order to avoid that, maybe that means the possibility was there for that suspicion, and to avoid that, Hashem associates his name with her by these words in the Torah.
Okay. Anyway, Mordechai, you wanted to say something? I know my time is up. Mordechai, did you want to say something?
No.
No? Oh, okay. All right. Well, Shkoyach, that's a nice
actually, the thing with the thing with the townsfolk trying to warn Yaakov. Isn't it there, like, I think, is there a Sephardi minhag that at a chuppah they go la la la? Is
Yeah,
that supposed
right.
to be, is that
I
supposed to
think that's
be
connected. Yeah.
related to
No,
that?
no, we have Ezra here. Ezra, fill us in on that minhag.
Minhag is that?
At a wedding, they go la 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 la. I don't know, something like that.
Ululation. I mean, ululation as a way of showing happiness at a wedding. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, during the chuppah.
Don't know.
Not familiar with it. All right.
Didn't happen to me. I
They're
married
warning,
an Ashkenaz, so I didn't
Right.
it didn't happen to me.
they're warning the chassan to give a quick look before he covers the wife's face to make sure it's really Rachel instead of
Right.
Leah.
Right, Taka. Very good. All right, Zygazon to everyone. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you,
If I don't see you
Rabbi.
tomorrow, have a good Shabbos.